Hello and welcome. I am here today to discuss a product that will assist patients who have suffered ankle, foot, or other lower leg injuries. Acute ankle injuries afflict about 2 million people in the United States each year and account for 20% of all sports injuries. Inadequate medical treatment can result in chronic pain, decreased range of motion, and joint instability. Patients are frequently required to wear a walking boot, also known as a cam boot, to protect and stabilize lower leg injuries. Physicians will often prescribe a percentage of the patient's weight that may be exerted upon the injured limb. Patients are asked to step on a scale to gauge the prescribed load, relying only on muscle memory and objectivity to heed the physician's advice. The ensuing confusion can lead to frequent overexertion, patient non-compliance, and protracted recovery times due to re-injury. If only a product existed that made recovery process easier for the patient. Introducing the SMARTboot Advanced Recovery System. SMARTboot looks and functions like a standard everyday walking boot, but utilizes advanced features to aid in patient recovery. SMARTboot utilizes embedded electronics, forefoot and heel-mounted strain gauges, and Bluetooth wireless transmitting technology to measure the load exerted on the patient's injured limb, alert the patient and physician of the event, and monitor recovery progress. If the patient exceeds the recommended load, SMARTboot generates an audible alarm, vibrates, and illuminates a red indicator LED to provide an instant alert. The patient also receives notifications via a smartphone app, and the physician is notified via secure email. All loads are then sent to a secure website for analysis by the physician and for reference by the patient. Imagine this scenario. During a baseball game, a star shortstop breaks to his right to field a hard ground ball. His ankle gives way and the ball continues into left field. The injured player writhes on the ground in obvious pain and is subsequently helped from the field. The huge crowd in the stadium sits in stunned silence. The day after the game, the athlete visits an orthopedist to discuss his injury. The diagnosis is handed down: a stress fracture of the left ankle. Stunned, hoping that the injury was merely a mild sprain, the athlete asks the doctor what can be done to improve his recovery time. The doctor responds by prescribing SMARTboot. The doctor then logs into the SMARTboot secure website to enter the patient's personal information. He indicates the patient's weight and injury diagnosis. Based on the severity of the injury, the doctor concludes that the patient must exert no more than 30% of his body weight on the afflicted limb. The SMARTboot software calculates this as 50 pounds. The patient immediately remembers a similar injury from high school. At that time, he was asked to step on a scale and remember how much the prescribed weight felt on his injured leg. The patient was worried that a similar process would ensue, but the doctor reassured him that SMARTboot would eliminate such concerns. The patient then left the doctor wearing his SMARTboot and feeling confident that he'd be back on the field imminently. Several days after his diagnosis, the patient took a hard step, heard an alarm, and noticed that a red LED had illuminated on the SMARTboot. A few seconds later, an alert appeared on the patient's smartphone, confirming that he had indeed exceeded the limit set forth by the doctor. The hard step did not, however, cause any pain, and the patient wondered if he would be able to put more weight on his injury after his next checkup. The patient then decided to open the SMARTboot app on his smartphone to see how he was progressing. He tapped on the patient rehab tracking function, which includes charts designed to monitor patient progress. He looked at the rehab tracking graph, noting the peak load that had triggered the alarm, and the fact that he had been taking many steps in the yellow zone, within 5% of the prescribed load. The patient returned to the doctor for his scheduled appointment. He relayed to the doctor that the alarm-generating step had caused absolutely no discomfort. The doctor responded by reviewing the patient progress charts. Noting that the patient had been taking more and more steps in the yellow zone, within 5% of the prescribed load limit, the doctor decided that the patient's load limit could then be increased to 40%, allowing the patient to put more weight on the injured leg. The doctor once again logged into the SMARTboot secure website to alter the patient's data. The doctor increased the recommended load to 40%, allowing the patient to place more weight on the injured limb. Over the next several weeks, the doctor would repeat the process of meeting with the patient, reviewing his charts, and increasing the load limit accordingly. Should the patient experience any pain, he could email the doctor using either the secure website or SMARTboot's smartphone app. The doctor could then remotely reduce the load threshold to trigger an alarm more easily. After further discussing the procedure with the doctor, the athlete left the office and continued his rehabilitation as scheduled. After diligent rehabilitation and help from SMARTboot, the patient was back on the field in seemingly no time, feeling confident and without pain. The advanced features of SMARTboot helped make the recovery process more intuitive, and the patient appreciated the tracking software that allowed him to monitor his progress. SMARTboot, empowering patient recovery.